So, okay, you might say, well, if I'm going to go in with someone, as a partner, then that diminishes that process. Well, yes and no, because yeah, I mean, you're still, I guess, you're building wealth that you have to split evenly, 50-50. But when you consider it's 40 times what it'd be as a renter, you're still ahead of the game. And in terms of making your payments, you're no longer paying a rent payment that just wasted money helping the landlord build wealth. Now you're making a payment that's comparable to rent, or if you're splitting it up the way we just described, better than what you would rent on your own. Then you're applying those dollars into a forced savings by paying down the balance to create even more equity that's going to occur even beyond the market appreciation of the home. So that's really one of the first points to understand about this is the wealth creation opportunity that you can then start earlier rather than waiting later when you're trying to do it on your own.
Well, talking about later, I think a couple shows back, you were talking about the average age of a first-time home buyer is now 40 years old.
Yep.
And I think this is my understanding of the data is because it's that we're getting married later and we're having to save in our minds. We're having to save and prepare longer to buy our first home. So we kind of have that mindset. And tell me if I'm wrong, is we say, well, we don't buy a home, we rent until we're married or we're married with children. And now we have the need for more than a 2-bedroom apartment. And those are the kind of the triggering points to buying a home. But what I'm hearing you say is, and you've said the last couple of weeks, is it's really a wealth generation procedure, like that whole compounding interest thing. The sooner you start, the more it adds up. Do we see that same thing happen with housing?
Right. And see, that's the thing is that the way, I mean, it's pretty shocking when you hear about that. The average first-time homebuyer is now 40. So they're taking this extended period of time to prepare themselves to own a home. I think it has to be flipped. In other words, that 40-year-old who is the first-time homebuyer probably spent years and years and years renting, right? And maybe they rented early on when they first got out of school and they're young with a roommate or two, and then eventually they got their own apartment, but they're still waiting and trying to save money and all this. I would say flip that whole process on its upside down. And again, when you first start looking at having housing of your own, don't dismiss buying. Yeah, you may not be in a position to do it by yourself, but again, if you have a trusted friend or friends, talk to them and have some discussion about, is there some mutual objectives that this kind of strategy would work for all of them, and then set their mind into doing it. Because the thing about being a renter, and we've talked about this before, it's uncertain because in most cases, most renters will tell you they're dealing with a rent increase, if not every year, every couple of years. So